$200, a Super Nintendo setup costs twice as much as the old system. For the money, the company promises better pictures, sound, and adventure. Now you're playing with power, superpower. You're the king, I tell you! The king!
Only for Super NES. You're listening to the SNES broadcast with your hosts, Soul Blazer and George.
Hello, everybody. This is Super NES Podcast, episode number 132 this time around. As always, these are your hosts. I'm Greg. He's George.
Hey, that's my cue stick. Give that back to me.
Hey, there are some expensive cue sticks out there.
Oh yeah.
I mean, you want to talk about a hobby that like a hobby that you can sink some money into? Oh boy.
Man, just making cue sticks out of the tears of baby pandas.
Do they do that really?
No.
Oh, okay. No.
I was thinking of an endangered species and also something that could be kind of rarely found.
Well, they have made cue sticks out of elephant ivory in the past.
I knew you were gonna say that.
Yeah.
Yep.
So,
That's awful.
But anyway, as you may have guessed already, we're covering some pool games in this episode. I like pool. We grew up with the pool table in the house, in the house. We played a lot of it. I used to be very good at it back in college. I'm not now because like anything else in life, skills decay. We don't use them on a regular basis. So, having said that, there's a very good combination pool / dart / bar place near here. They call it a Snookers. That's pretty fun. I've gone there several times. I think they're a chain. I don't know how far beyond Renown that they go though. But anyway, so compared to some systems like the NES, there's not many pool games on the system. There's only two. So we decided that it kind of made sense just to include both of them like this episode to compare and contrast them. Those games are Championship Pool and Side Pocket. I never played either of these games in the past. I knew they existed, but I really hadn't, But usually when I play a pool game, it's usually there's some sentimental NES favorites that favorites that I go to, such as Lunar Pool, which is like a futuristic pool game, which the pool table is all different shapes and sizes.
Oh man, why didn't we play that game? That sounds like fun.
Because it's an NES game.
Shh. It's okay. No, it just so happens that there is an SNES version, and it's okay.
So what's your experience with pool, George? Have you played in real life? I assume sometimes, but
one time I peed in it, and that was the end of everything. My grandfather years ago had a pool table in his basement, so that's kind of like where I started kind of like picking up like understanding what pool was, I guess you could say. And then also my cousin had one, and we played a decent amount, not like too often, but we played. And then for a while I didn't really have any way to play pool, at least in the real world.
Right. Yeah.
And then was hanging out with friends and friend of friends, and one of them had a pool table in their basement, so that turned into let's start drinking and play pool. And that was I'll just end it in that was fun. But yeah, I think I might have I probably played pool more virtually than I have in real life.
A lot of people probably do that way. So
yeah.
Especially pool games have been out for a long time, and there's and there's a lot of good pool games out there. So pretty much any system has pretty much any system you can name has at least one pool game for it. So
and it's also kind of difficult to get a pool table, and also find someone who has a pool table.
Yeah, because they weigh like 2 tons.
Yeah, also they're a little pricey. But sure, you could go out to bars and stuff, but I'd rather be in a place with friends and in a friend's basement or something, like
Right.
somewhere more like private than
Right.
a public area like that. And
Yeah, I don't mind like going into public places now and then, like friends, because like it's a fun place like to drink, drink, hang out, like like listen to music or watch a game in the background. So I mean,
Yeah.
I mean, it's the whole social environment aspect of it. So and like you said, like having like a having like a pool table pool like in your house is not always the easiest thing to do. So
yeah,
yeah, so
usually those pool tables just get like unused, and then they're like storage tables.
well, in my
Which
house,
happened to another friend of mine because
Yep.
like I used to hang out with someone in high school a lot, and I would go over to his place, and like in the basement was a pool table, but like just a ridiculous amount of stuff piled up on top of it to like the ceiling, and it's like, are you looking to get rid of that? Like, what are you doing with that thing?
Yeah, yep, that sounds familiar. Like in my house, when the table wasn't being used, it wasn't being used. It wasn't being used as double duty as like a clothes drying place. But like
Oh, really?
yeah, like mom would put clothes on it after the washing machine, like to dry them out. She's always been a proponent of the fact that the dryer should be used as little as possible. But so she's always like air
Well, you
dried.
say power. At least that's a thing.
Well, yeah, that's a reason too. But anyway, so these two pool games are very similar in a lot of ways because of course it's pool. There's only, I mean, like really, there's only so many ways that you can like portray like the game of pool being played. So, but there are some pretty significant differences also. So, I will leave it up to you, George. Which game do you want to cover first?
The first one, which is Championship Pool.
Championship Pool. All right. This game
Sucks. All right, end of story. All right, now go on.
This game was the first one on the system. Let me confirm that real quick here. Yes, by a little bit. This was the first game on the system. This game was developed by Bitmasters and published by Mindscape. We covered both companies in the past. I won't spend too much time on them here. As a reminder, Bitmasters did not make a lot of games in their history, but they did develop the Super NES port of Rampart, which is why we've already covered them.
That was a while ago.
Yes. So,
oh man.
I mean, Rampart Championship Pool were like only 2 of 5 games that Bitmasters even developed in the first place. They also developed Crazy Creatures for the NES, NCAA Final Four Basketball, Genesis to Super Nintendo, and the Super NES port of Primal Rage.
Oh, wow, okay.
So, I mean, they weren't around very long, though. So, and Mindscape, of course, was a very good company, also like in their own right. So,
they were one of those companies that was like hit and miss.
Yeah, I suppose so. But I enjoyed most of their games, like what they were. So, Championship Pool was simultaneously developed for numerous systems. Besides Super NES, it also came out on the game also came out on the NES, the Game Boy, Genesis, and also DOS.
Oh, okay.
So, and they went like one step further, and they also features pretty prominently, like in both the box art and also the game itself. The game is officially endorsed by the by the Build Congress of America, which is the official pool governing body, like in the States. So, this game is a like a pretty straightforward version of pool. But what's very impressive about this is, Flay notice the right away as you fire it up, there are a ton of options here in this game. So, and like numerous ways you can play pool. There's like 4, like on the main screen, you have 4 different sub-menus to go into to set your game modes. You can do either freestyle, which is basically just like, play however you want. This is a good practice mode, like want to do. You want to like to recreate famous games, you want to recreate trick shots, this is the mode for you. So like it's a very straightforward, nice way to practice. The party pool is the multiplayer option, where I'm surprised again, if you have the appropriate devices, you can have up to 8 players playing. So that's pretty impressive.
I don't have any friends, so I couldn't play that one.
The tournament mode is next. This is kind of the bread, the main bread and butter of the game. There are numerous options in like the pool, in this one. It includes some of these pool options are more common in other parts of the world than others. So what you know or know how to play will largely depend upon where you grew up playing pool basically, because it's like, for example, 8-ball is super popular here in the U.S. To be fair, 8-ball is popular around the world too, but variations of 8-ball are more popular in other countries. Like, for example, 9-ball is more popular in Europe. 10-ball is more popular in the Middle East. Et cetera, et cetera. So. And those are all pretty much variations on 8-ball. There's also street pool available, which is just regular, a non-gimmick form of a pool. You also have rotation, which is as the name implies, you have to sink the balls in order of 1 to 15. So, and there's also speed pool, which is a solitary pool game. So, a lot of options here. There's also the challenge mode, where you can make your own game options for this, for single player shot practice. So, yeah, just numerous ways to play this game. And also when you pick the mode, you also have choice over various options. There's difficulty. There's also difficulty that you can set. You can also set if you want the computer to break automatically for you, which is nice. So, because usually at least the lower difficulty levels, the computer will automatically sync a ball for you to start with, which is nice. So, and some people hate to break, so it's it's a nice option that the game.
I love breaking. I always do the weirdest shot ever.
I mean, it's hard. In real life, you want to break well, you have to hit that with a lot of force. So, but yeah, numerous options of this game. So it's a very nice touch. The graphics show a very simple, no-frill pool table. It's kind of zoomed in a little bit to give you a good, pretty view. The table and the holes. The ball graphics are not great. I thought they'd be a little bit sharper, but they are recognizable. What they are. So.
When it's zoomed out, it just gives you numbers. Which
right. Yep. Exactly.
Isn't helpful. It's I'm sorry. I'm sure a lot of people know that number 5 is striped or solid or whatever the heck it is, but I always need to constantly zoom in this game, and it's there's no options menu or anything, so I can't change anything or whatever, and it's
the gameplay.
Please let me have an option where you just straight up let me know if it's stripes or solid without me having to ram my face into the pool table to look everywhere.
Yeah, it's very strange because compared to all the options the game gives you in setting up your game of pool, the actual game of pool itself is very very basic. The screen is no frills. It's
basic, but also it's made in a way that kind of doesn't make sense to me.
Oh, how so?
Because when you're aiming, first of all, you don't have a cue stick. You're just,
right. Yep.
I don't know. You're using the wind. I don't know. You're blowing on the cue ball. I don't know. But you also don't have a dotted line trail showing where you're shooting or anything. You have this weird gyroscope icon that you move around, and then when you hover near or on another ball, it shows you where it goes. But then the other thing about that is that it shows you where it goes, but then you hit it and it doesn't go where it showed you where it was gonna go. And it was this game was really bad with shooting stuff, because I had a better better time guessing than following any of the guidelines the game gave me.
Yeah, I didn't have as much of a problem with making shots as you did, but I certainly agree with you as far as some of the shortcomings go, because, yeah, I mean, like, the game doesn't, the game screen pretty much just shows you the table, and that's it. I mean, like, there's no, the options are very minimal. Trick shots are almost possible to make. Well, at least like in regular tournament and tournament challenge modes. I mean, like in freestyle, it's easy. Because you're making up the game rules. It's easier to do that. But also, I found it very curious. The game doesn't show the AI, the AI doing their turn. It just kind of like
and it cheats.
I didn't see.
It's like,
that,
it's the AI's turn. Oh, they're gonna. Oh, they pocketed everything and they won. It's like, like it feels like it feels like, all right, it's your opponent's turn. Oh wait, all the lights went out and they just threw all the balls in the pockets. It's like, oh, that's weird. I won now. Yeah. Like, okay. Yeah, I really don't like that. I would like to be able to see what they're doing and everything. It kind of just feels a little cheap that. Oh, calculating what your opponent did. Oh, by the way, they pocketed like half their balls in one turn. Like, oh, okay, well, I did not have much fun playing this game, obviously.
Yeah, I'm guessing they did it because of like size limitations, but
no idea.
So, yeah, I really don't know. It's very because you have to remember. Well, unfortunately, when a game's ported to multiple systems, they usually, I mean, not always, but they usually will make the game for the lowest common. Lowest common denominator, which I imagine was the Game Boy, probably in this case. So, yeah, if I had to guess, that's probably why they left it out. But, yeah. So one of the other really cool things about this game is the music. It's a very good soundtrack. It's like a very old style 20s jazz style pool hall theme based soundtrack. So,
yeah, and then the jukebox you could change the music.
Yeah, exactly. So, very cool. Good music. Yeah, very very fitting. Kind of it's perfect pool hall smoky kind of gangster pool hall kind of setting with the music. So
might be the best part of the game.
Yeah. So yeah, I did not dislike this game as much as you did. I really loved all the options. I mean, this is an excellent game for playing numerous types of pool if you want to. So, the graphics are fine for what they are. The music's great. The game's definitely. It's strange to say this, but for pool, which should be pick up and play, this game's not very pick up and play. It does take
this definitely takes a lot of time to get acclimated to.
Which is strange. Strange to say that about pool because everybody knows how to play 8-ball, right? But I mean, I guess there's one difference between the real thing and a virtual version of it. So, yeah. So I will get my final thoughts on this and compare and contrast them after we're done talking about the second game. I will say, however, that this game did not get a lot of coverage when it came out, but those magazines that did cover it gave it pretty high marks.
Really?
Yeah.
Jeez.
The French magazine Joypad gave it 86%, and AGM gave it 89%.
What? All right.
And on Game FAQs, it gets an average of 3 out of 5 stars. For all the for all the ratings. To the ratings on there. There are some cheats. There are some cheats present in this game. If you want to, for example, in a 9-ball championship, if you want to skip the first 4 qualifying opponents, and opponents just go straight, just go straight to the championship mode, they can do that. You have just speed pool and challenge mode. You just score 140 or lower, X out tournament mode. And after selecting 9-ball and your break type, you work automatically, which is a pretty cool Easter egg. You also can do something similar with the 8-ball World Championship, if you want to skip to the end. In that case, you have to play equal offense to challenge and score exactly 13 points in the first round. After that, if you go to 8-ball again, you'll warp past your qualifying rounds like to the opponents. Oh, by the way, the game does show some very limited player graphics, like your opponents. It's nothing fancy, like it's very like basic graphics. So, again, I think this game was hurt a little bit because it was like, ported to multiple systems, and they're trying to do like, the lowest common denominator thing. So, but anyway, so this game is not very expensive on eBay, as you might imagine. I mean, like, pool games are kind of niche, so I can't see the demand for this game being like super high. There's 127. When I was researching this, there were 127 copies currently listed. 19 copies have recently sold. Cart-only prices. These prices include shipping. You can have a cart of this game for anywhere from $3.50 to $9, and CIB range from $6 to $15.50.
Wow.
So, yeah, so like pretty cheap. Like not hard to buy. It's like not hard to add. Not hard to add to your collection, and like for and $3.50, I think it's like a fair price like this game for sure. So, but moving on to side pockets. The development history of this game is pretty interesting, actually. Like for pool game, I never thought I'd say that, but this was originally an arcade game. It was created by Data East. Back in 1986. I don't think we've covered Data East yet in this podcast, so
you might be right on that.
So we'll talk about Data East for a little bit. Data East back in the day was one of the biggest game companies out there. A lot of great games like made by them over the years, like for sure. So they were around from 1976 to 2000 to 2003. Their prime era was certainly during the during the golden age of arcades, like in the 80s and or 90s. A lot of their like best games came out during this time period. Karate Champ, Heavy Barrel, Burger Time, Bad Dudes vs. Dragon Ninja, Sly Spy, RoboCop, Bump and Jump, Karnov. Those were all like Data East games. So
yeah.
They also made a lot of console games, the console ports like as well also, and they also made pinball games like for a while. Pinball people think of their pinball games very highly these days because they produce a lot of top quality licensed games like Guns N' Roses, Star Wars, Back to the Future, Batman, RoboCop, Simpsons, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, etc., etc. So, they also came out with in the 80s very interesting system. I'm not sure if you've ever heard about this, George, because it's like pretty obscure. They came out with have you ever heard of the Deco cassette system?
Yes.
Okay, all right, so I'll talk about it here real quick, like the listeners. Data East 1980 was looking for a way to get around the problem of arcade owners complaining about the high cost of arcade cabinets. Because of course, most arcade games, they only had a limited life. Which games are profitable, and they're profitable, and then the game no longer was supposed to make money for them anymore. So they're looking for a way to get around that. So they came up with what was called, as the name implies, Data East just being like the abbreviation of Deco just being an abbreviation of Data East. The cassette system was basically a way of being able to ship the game. You bought one cab, and then after that, the game came with a cassette player inside of it. So you bought the game on cassette instead. And in the morning, you turn the game on. The game would load from the cassette, which took maybe like 10, 15 minutes, whatever. And then you could just play the game off that all day. And then at the end of the day, shut it down. And also, the advantage of the system was that their arcade operator's desire, they simply could just take out the cassette game and play with another one, like for a lot cheaper money. So they also came out with a I don't know what the proper name of it. The proper name of it was a lock doodle.
A what?
I think it actually was called like a dungo or something like that. It was actually it was a locking device that was applied to the cassette to prevent anybody from like copying it. So it was copyright feature. So in theory that sounds pretty good. However,
But didn't those things like have a lot of problems? They like broke down a lot. And
they
everything?
did. That was a problem. They did. That was a problem. The cassette games were not really designed for like constant play.
So yeah, you wear them out, and yep.
Also became very easy to lose the locking mechanism, which we did meant that you were kind of screwed. So,
yep.
Data East did not have many good games to release on the system because they only had their own games for it. And many Data East games during their time period were not that good. So, the one good game they had available for Burger Time was so good. This was so good that they simply produced their own cab just in that game itself to sell. So that kind of hurt that kind of hurt it for a little bit. But still, the system limped along to 1995 before it was officially dropped. So mostly in Japan. North American sports stopped for that years ago. The years before that. But but Japan, the system was a bit more successful. So Data East closed their U.S. operations in 1996 because the company was going through some tough times. They finally shut down in 2003. The following year, a Japanese mobile game company called Gmode bought most of their library. They don't have all the rights to Data East games. They have most of them under their belt. So Gmode today over the years, I continue today has continued to produce either like home releases of those games, or has also licensed the games out to the companies to use themselves.
Yep.
For example, last year, Arcade One Up produced a Data East standalone cab for sale that included a bunch of Data East games. So, so at least the games. So at least the games are still being made available because in so many cases like this, you see games fall through the cracks. Nobody knows who's the rights to them, and they're kind of abandoned. In this case, Gmode's actively promoting the games, the games and getting them out there still, which is like pretty cool. So
could be worse. A law firm could own the rights to a game.
Well, one did for a while.
Yeah, that's the reference.
System Shock 2, which they don't anymore,
yes.
Of course. But now that what's the name of the company that he works for now? There's some company now that has the rights to the game. So
yeah.
But for a while, the state of Rhode Island had the rights to 39 Studios games. So because
yeah.
That's a whole controversial story, especially in these parts.
We could do like a 2-hour podcast or more on that. Yeah.
It's a sore topic around these parts, though, because taxpayers paid for a lot of it, and we had to bail it out. So, not very good feelings around here.
Then government should never. Yeah. Okay. Let's move on.
But yeah, we'll talk about that later on. I think, because it is interesting. Just have to scope the podcast. So, Side Pocket was a pretty good arcade game. And because it was a popular game, the game was ported to the NES and Game Boy several years later, like in the late 80s. The NES version was almost exactly perfect, like the arcade version, whereas the Game Boy version had some differences. Mostly to accommodate the smaller screen the Game Boy had to work with.
Which makes it harder. Yay!
Right. So. They also simplified the physics for that version of the game to make it easier to play. So probably recognizing this, Data East a couple years later, in 1992, decided to make an enhanced version of the game like the Genesis. So this version of the game was very much improved and upgraded over the original arcade/NES Game Boy versions of the game. The graphics were better, and they were often enhanced and added onto. The soundtrack was added on for the first time because the original game didn't really have too much in the way of music. There was the photorealistic background screens, which we'll talk about here in a little bit, was also added for the version of the game. They also added in. They also changed the main game mode to have 5 levels, slightly representing the cities that you worked your way through as you play the game. Los Angeles, San Francisco, Las Vegas, New York, and Atlantic City. And they also had a trick shot mode as well, besides the main game mode. So the Super NES version is actually a port of the Genesis version. So when I said this was complicated, that's what I meant, because the game went from like arcade to NES, Genesis to Super NES. So the Super NES version of the game finally came out in December of 1993, kind of got a worldwide release the following year. So besides that, the game was also ported to the Game Gear, which is also the same Sega Genesis enhanced version. And curiously enough, several years later, the game also came out for the Wonder Swan in Japan only in 1999. And the Game Boy version of the game is also available on 3DS Virtual Console. That was out in 2011. So interesting development cycle here, like at this game. So also the Super NES port was handled by Iguana Entertainment. We've not talked about Iguana before, but Iguana is a pretty well-known developer company. They mostly do sports games, but they're also they're probably best known for having developed the Turok games. So, which recently got a remake and also like a new game. So, but Iguana is still in business compared to many of the companies that we've talked about, like this podcast. So anyway, so as I mentioned before, Side Pocket is basically a pretty straightforward version of game of pool. Compared to the game, the options this one are much more limited. You have the main game, which is called the Pocket game. It's the 1-player, 2-player. You have a 2-player only 9-ball game option, which is like 2-player only, really. So I kind of thought I was curious, but you can also do a trick game, which is similar to the option like in the last game we talked about, which you can set up like various shots situations and play to heart's content. And like the last game, you also have the ability to go to the jukebox to play around the music. Because also like the last game, this is a very jazz-inspired soundtrack in this game. The main difference with this soundtrack, I thought, was like, I'm not sure if you agree with me, George, but I think that, both games have jazz music, but I thought this one was more modern sounding. Okay,
yeah.
Compared to Championship Pool's like kind of retro themed jazz style, this one was more like modern, like upbeat, kind of like jazzy tempo to it.
Right.
So, but again, very good music. Both games have both games have great soundtracks. So the layout of this game is noticeably different, like compared to the last game. First, as I mentioned before, the options of this game are much more limited. You pretty much only have like the game mode itself, where you're an inspiring hustler just trying to make your way through the 5 cities to beat your opponent in advance. You also have lives in this game, which is interesting. You start off with 8 lives. Oh no, sorry, actually, I think it's like more than that. This version of the game, 16, I think maybe. So, every time you fail to make a shot or sink their, or scratch your cue ball, then you lose a life. So, but you can gain lives by playing well in the game by racking up points and doing certain things. Like for example, like if you pocketed X number of balls in a row, you can get points. You can hit the balls in sequence. You can get points, and depending on how many points you get after you finish the round, that can also determine how many lives you get, and you can also earn lives. You have the end of every round a trick shot mini game. We have to try to get the ball in one of the pockets.
I always break those glasses.
Yeah.
Not very good.
Yep, as I was saying, some game mode. Some of the stages, not all of them. Some of the stages also have challenge mode. We're trying to, as George just mentioned, you're trying to shoot your ball around in between glasses to sink your ball. So
I tried so many times, and I
it could be
the glasses.
Yeah, for sure. That could be pretty difficult. So
yeah.
So we mentioned. I mentioned before the photo. Like I mentioned before the photorealistic graphics. They're really good in this game. I mean, I was shocked at how good they are. The opening screen features a woman. Like in a bar setting. Each of the stages, like introduce like a woman. During the actual gameplay, in the corner of the screen, like you have a photorealistic version, like your like player, like taking a shot. So like really good like photorealistic graphics in this game. Trivia note: those players, the guys, are actually homage to the 1960s film Color of Money. With
what?
one player, yeah.
I don't even know what you're talking about.
Color of Money's a classic, pool movie. So
I never heard of it. Oh, okay.
yeah, Tom Cruise and Paul Newman play the two main stars in it. So, and the characters so the characters in this game look like those characters.
Huh. Okay.
So the game screen itself is, compared to the last game, has a lot more going on with it. First of all, the pool table is zoomed out more by default to more like a bigger bird's eye view. Like you see more of the table because like zoomed out a bit more. It's also a very nice looking pool table compared to the last game. It's like a very
Yes.
wood finish or whatnot. So, top of the screen gives you your stats information. You have the score, the number of cue balls you have left, a virtual representation like your cue ball that you use for like lining up shots. You also have the next box will show you what your next target is if you're like playing in a mode that requires that. There's a power gauge. The power gauge that shows you how strong a shot is. There's both like that's represented in both like in terms of like a min-max gauge and also like a sideways. So what do you call it? A sideways gauge, like a coin in this, showing the power. So
yeah, it's like a power bar.
Yeah, right.
I mean, not a power bar. It's
right,
like
yeah.
a bar of power.
Right. So
is power bar even a thing anymore?
Yes. Yeah, it is.
Oh wow. Okay.
You also have when you're lining up a shot, you also have like a virtual representation of the projected angle of your shot on the screen. The main all in all, I think this is better. I think the
Yes.
the overall presentation and graphics make it a bit easier to play this game. The one drawback I'll give this game, that's the one thing I'll knock this game for the championship pool had, the ball is not numbered.
There's a button you could hit to show the numbers.
I actually did not find that. Okay.
Yeah, I was playing around with the buttons. I was like, I don't know how to play this game, and I was like,
Okay.
oh, there's numbers. Cool. Okay.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
So the
But
default,
I mean, this game is pretty different compared to
Oh yeah.
Championship Pool, though. Like, I feel like you can't really directly compare them because like this one's more about, doing like trick shooting and
Right. Yeah.
just getting whatever balls into the pockets and whatnot, like being more flashy and showy and whatnot. Whereas Championship Pool is more about being a terrible game. I mean, I'm kidding. It's more about like trying to be more like a simulation and you're playing 8-ball, 9-ball, all that stuff. I like both types of games, but I do not like Championship Pool.
Yeah.
Side Pocket it was pretty cool though. I was like, oh, because I'm like jumping into this blind, so it's like, oh, like I'm like I don't have to do it in a specific order. Well, I'm not playing 8-ball. Like I'm just like doing trick shots and getting points, and it's like, yeah, this is very arcadey, and this is pretty cool actually.
Yeah. Well, because the game shows its arcade origins. Like for sure, because like because even though they added on a couple extra modes, like with the home releases, the main bread and butter of this game is still that pool tournament setting. So you're not even playing against anybody in that mode either. Just like you against the pool. So So it's like, you know,
You
you're just
against the pool table.
You
Who
against the-
will win? Fight.
you're just trying to advance, like, advance to the next stage, before you, like, you know, before you, like, try to throw your balls. And like 16 cue balls is pretty generous to start with. So.
Do you start with 16?
I thought it was 16. Like, it might only be 8.
I thought it was 8.
Yeah.
I thought it was 8.
I think you can change that in the settings.
Oh.
As well. So.
Okay.
But yeah.
Because I was gonna say 16. Like, wow, I'm really bad if I went through 16 and only got to like round 3 or something.
Right. Yeah, you know, if you, if you know what you're doing, this is pretty, like, you know, a quick game. I mean, there's a video on YouTube of somebody going through all 5 stages in like 14 minutes. So, I mean, it's like, if you're a skilled player, you can, like, breeze through is like nothing. But still, I mean, I think the challenge is here for like most players to have like a pretty enjoyable, enjoyable game of pool. So,
Yeah.
Yeah, the controls for this game are a little bit better too. I thought that it seemed a bit easier to make your shots in this one, but
Yeah. Because you can also, like, the difference between the two is that in Championship Pool, you have an icon floating around. You move with the D-pad. You're not turning a cue stick around a cue ball or anything. You're not doing like a straight shot off of the cue ball. I don't even know how to explain it. It's just really weird. Whereas Side Pocket's just like any other pool game where you got the cue stick lined up to the cue ball and you're rotating around it, and you can fine tune it with the shoulder buttons, which is really nice.
Yes.
That you could like fine tune it like that.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, for sure. So it's also also, like, you know, when you're not actually shooting, so when your player's actually not shooting, when you're like trying to light up your shot, the corner of the screen where normally show the photo representation of your character just shows the name of the game with like a pair of like woman's lips there instead. Nice touch.
Yeah.
Like, they're kind of like, you know, so we talked about this a little bit before, like off mic, because pool halls have a reputation of being like, you know, like these smoky, dangerous place of like, you know, like gangsters or like, you know, illegal side hustle games, like, you know, sexy women and whatnot. So it's like in both games try to appeal that a little bit. So it's kind of interesting to see, like, you know, how that differs. For Side Pocket, for example. If you look at the ads for both the Genesis and Super NES version of this game, totally different ads. It's like in the Genesis version of the game, they play up the sex appeal, like, you know, having like a woman, woman with a sexy dress, like leaning over taking a shot. Whereas like the Super NES version of the game is more like, you know, 3 gangsters, like, they're playing the game. So
yeah,
like,
well, I mean, you know, Nintendo console's more family friendly, and
yep. So, which is why I'm surprised they even have the lips in here, because I'm like, you know, Nintendo doesn't censor that, really? So,
don't really see much to censor there, to be honest.
Yeah, I was just surprised. So,
yeah.
Speaking about, like, you know, sexy girls, the Japanese, of course, being the Japanese, but
okay, I'm interested.
They made an arcade adaptation, like the NES version of the game, called Pocket Gal. 1987.
Oh, yes.
Which is, as you can imagine, a stripping game. So, you know, as you advance the game, the girls take off their clothes. So, there was a version of this game that was released in North America without that option in it. So, the game itself, however, the Side Pocket, however, did well enough, however, to make 2 proper sequels. Side Pocket 2 came out for the Genesis, Sega Saturn, and they actually featured, in that game they prominently licensed Minnesota Fats, who's one of the best the pool players of all time. Side Pocket 3 came out for the was Japan only, came out for the Saturn and PlayStation.
Okay.
So, Side Pocket 3 is also the first game to have like a first-person 3-dimensional graphics in it. So, very different take on the game. The reviews of this game were pretty good also. The Computer Gaming World called it a very impressive build simulation, maybe like one of the best ones made. GamePro praised the variety of modes, the audio, the graphical improvements, and also improvements of the game compared to the NES and arcade versions, and also the very realistic details that the game had. They said the game was recommended for pool enthusiasts and casual video game players alike. And the Entertainment Weekly, we've talked about this in the past. You found Strange Entertainment Weekly was covering games. Well, they actually have covered a lot of video games over the years. So they gave the game a B-, like in the review. And I'm just going to read the review, the highlight of the review here very quickly because I agree with like 99% of this. They said the game quote had electronic lounge sounds are an integral component of the game, which presents American pool halls as a series of squeaky clean, no beer stains on the felt here, non-confrontational venues which are so objective as to play pool, and not say to pressure date of how many shots of tequila you can down in 5 minutes. Embodying this bare bones approach to the game's hyper-realistic overhead angle table display. Not as realistic, unfortunately, is its follow the dotted line aiming system, which allows you to hit the cue ball in only half a dozen places. An extensive trick shot menu, apparently meant to compensate for this glaring limitation, is intriguing, but only somewhat useful. So that's fair. I mean, if you're like a realistic, very good serious pool player, some of the options in this game are going to be kind of disappointing to you, I think. So that's like a fair critique. But so this game itself ranked a little bit better on Game FAQs, 3.5 stars out of 5 as an average. It's not as common on eBay for some reason. Maybe the game didn't sell as well, but I can only find 19 copies of this game currently listed with their current list of 13 copies have been recently sold. Pricing, though, is comparable to the other game. Card-only prices range anywhere from $7 to $19, and CIB copies range anywhere from $20 to $22 to There also was sealed copies of this game that sold recently. Pretty cheap as far as like sealed copies goes. That's over $69.
Oh wow.
So, and yeah, final thoughts. I kind of, I wanted to close off that Entertainment Weekly comment. Because I thought that was a pretty fair critique. If you're a casual pool player and you want to have a lot of modes available to you, Championship Pool is a fun game. I mean, there's a lot of options there. Like playing your pool. There's more settings. There's more settings and options. An option in that game for sure. So, if you're looking for a more easier, like more complex, like more professional, I suppose, its approach. Men are playing pool with numerous options available to you. Championship Pool is a very good. Championship Pool is certainly better through games. However, if you're more of a casual pool player who just wants to have a basic no frills, help me out kind of game mode, Side Pocket's very good for that. It's very easy to pick up and play game, but it's also but there's enough here. But even though the modes in this game are much more limited, there's certainly enough here to keep coming back. There's certainly a lot more in this game to keep coming back playing on a regular basis. Should try to get good with the game mode and the game and whatnot. So, which game you play really depends upon what kind of pool player you are, what you're looking for. I think at the end. So. But either way, both games have great soundtracks. So you definitely have some really good music. Good music to shoot by.
I agree with that.
So you obviously saw, Flex. You obviously liked Side Pocket a lot better, George, because of the game physics, and how the game played and whatnot. So, anything about the game that you didn't like, or anything else you want to say about it?
No, there's nothing really that I didn't like about it. It's just, yeah, championship pool, I don't even... It's not very good. I was not having a good time with the championship part of the game. With the tournament, and it's like, oh, it's your opponent's turn. By the way, he pocketed, like, all the balls already, and he won. Okay, thanks. But Side Pocket was a really cool thing to check out.
Yes.
It's like, oh, you're just trying to get the balls in here, and you're trying to, like, not miss, and that's pretty cool. It's kind of like a puzzle game in a way. You know?
Well, pool is... well, yeah, you know, pool certainly has some... pool certainly has some, like, you know, the puzzle aspect to it. You know, like, but, you know, the bread and butter of the game is, of course, like, you know, like math. Because, like, you know, if you can calculate the angles in your head, you really can do, like, all the professional pool players, like, do that, like, on the fly. It's like, you know, it's very, like, it's very impressive to watch.
Yeah.
You know, back in the old days when ESPN was just getting started, like, in the 80s, bowling and pool tournaments were pretty much all they showed because that's all they had their rights to. So.
Oh wow. Okay.
But I mean, like ESPN2 still shows some pool games every now and then. So you know the championship games. So like it is still possible to watch it. But yeah. So right. So So two very different pool games in the system. Both games what they are I think are fine. It just depends on what you're looking for. So, but like I said, you know. Like we said before starting the podcast, there's numerous good pool games out there. It's kind of hard to compare and contrast these games because it's like how many ways like you like portray like pool. I mean, it's like the rules are already set. You know, you work this in, you put this in. It's pool, ship it. So it's like, you know, I mean, you know,
if it walks like a pool, it talks like a pool.
Right.
It's a pool.
I could not imagine. You know, I never played a handheld. I've never played a handheld version of this game though. You know, I mean the Game Boy or Game Gear or whatnot. Some of the viewers commented on this. It's got to be, pool games in those systems, however, is much more difficult because it's like there's no color, at least for the Game Boy. The graphics are a lot more scrunched in because of the smaller game screen. You know, the physics aren't as good. Yeah, I would not play pool portably. At least not back then. Maybe I'm assuming there's a pool game out there for the. Assuming there's a pool game out there like the DS. You know, I think that probably that probably solves some of the. You know, the DS is powerful enough, I think, to solve the problems that some of the earlier Game Boy / Game Gear pool games had. So, But yeah, so I would not want to play like a no color version of pool for sure because the color really helps.
Yeah.
I mean, I looked at the Game Boy version online. It's fine for what it is. Just show the numbers at least, so you know what the numbers are. But it's very hard to play 8-ball if you don't know if it's solid or stripes.
Right.
So anyway, that's pretty much about it. Do you have anything more you want to say about this game, George, before we wrap it up here?
Not really.
Cool. All right. So, yeah. So if we'll say one thing. If you're like a newbie pool player, I do think, limitations aside, I do think championship pool is a pretty good place to start because, because of all the options the game has, whatnot. Because there's a lot more pool than 8-ball. I mean, 8-ball is the most popular version out there, but it's like there are numerous other pool games. Have you ever, but most people have not played beyond 8-ball. George, have you ever played anything else besides 8-ball?
I don't know. No, I don't think I
probably
have.
Not.
Yeah, I don't think I have.
So. But if you want a good version of pool, Side Pocket, Side Pocket's pretty fun for what it is. So anyway, we want to thank you again for listening to this podcast as always. If you want to give us feedback, comments, suggestions, etc., we have a Facebook page. You can search for it by searching for Super NES Podcast. You can also send me the email directly if you want to at the SNESpodcast@yahoo.com. We also have a Patreon where it's many. For as little as $1 a month, you can get shouted out in the episode. If like any episode like telling what to do now for Corey and David. Thank you for your support, guys. You also get early access to episodes, be able to dictate games for us, and like some other options. George, where can people find you at Thanks for Inclined? Well,
Twitter's the thing if you want to find me there. My handle on there is @_Derpkin_. That is @_DERPKITTEN_, and that's about it.
All right, for our next episode of this podcast, we're taking a small break because I'm going on vacation very shortly. A couple of weeks. Leaving a couple days after this episode drops. Like as a matter of fact, we will be dropping the next episode of this podcast the weekend of December 14th. And what game we're covering? What game we're covering in that episode, George?
What game are we covering that episode, George? I was not prepared for you to ask me.
You should know, you picked it.
oh yeah. Final Fantasy V.
Yes.
My mind is all over the place right now.
Right. Which is another Japanese-only game, or at least originally. The game has been ported to the West several times. So.
Yep.
But for originally it was a Japanese-only game. We'll talk about the reasons why that was, like the episode, I'm sure. So.
Because it's so good, it couldn't leave Japan.
And then after that, we're going to finish off the year with a special episode. And then we'll be back to you again in 2020 with like new episodes, covering like older games. So look forward to that. As always, thank you for the support. I very much appreciate it. And it's a virtual pool may not be as fun as like real pool, but for what it is, there are worse ways to kill half an hour.
At least you can't pee in it virtually.
Yeah. Yes. Or damage it like I saw somebody do once.
Like on purpose?
No, they were just taking a shot. They got a bit aggressive with the cue stick, and they ended up ripping the.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, ripping the fabric.
Yeah, I heard that a lot when I was a kid. Which
is a thing, so.
Yeah, it is. I'm glad I never did it on any pool table I ever played on. Oh man, that sounds terrible.
One of my friends at work used to have like one of those like mini pool tables, the mini pool tables on his desk. The ones with like 1 foot by 2 foot.
Right.
Not a bad time waster for a minute.
There you go.
But anyway, thanks again, everybody, and we'll talk to you again next time. Take care.
Bye.
Nintendo controls 80% of the video market. But no matter how you play the game, or which game you play, things definitely have come a long way since Pac-Man. Now you're playing with power. For power.